Life in Australia's unofficial coconut capital sure is beautiful. But it's not all fun and frivolity under the palms. Believe it or not, tropical paradise actually requires a fair amount of hard work.
We've got climbing spikes, you've obviously got a harness for safety, you've got a rope and a flip line. Your flip line's your first anchor point. You get up there, you put a rope through the crown of the palm, and that's where you come down on.
He goes up palms to protect the public. The council doesn't want coconuts landing on people's heads.
We certainly want to keep our iconic palms. They're part of our laid-back tropical ambience. But we also want to make sure that our visitors and locals are safe and that they're not exposed to the risk of a falling coconut.
Jim Scott and his team maintain about 1,400 of the council's coconut palms. And there are a bunch of other arborists competing for the work. It's physical and constant. A mature coconut palm can produce up to 100 nuts every year.
Is that what you would expect to see in a tree, twice a year?
Yeah, a little bit heavier than that, but that's a little bit heavier than average, but probably about 7 or 8 months worth of coconuts there, so.
The average palm in Port Douglas is about 15 metres tall, although there are some nudging 20 metres. Think a 7-storey building. On an average day, the men will climb and work on around 40 trees. But boss Jim Scott holds the record for the most trees done in one day.
I don't know if it's a state record, but yeah, we reckon it's a record, 64.
Yes, you heard it right. 64 trees in one day. That's a lot of coconuts. Which begs the question, what happens to them?
The bigger coconuts obviously we use, so we've got a couple of people we supply them to.
While some families bring a bucket and spade to the beach, the Willets bring their wheelbarrow.
Oh, here's a good coconut though.
You got there, you got these ones.
Today is a harvest day.
We collect coconuts, open them up, get the meat out and flavour them and dehydrate them, turn them into chips.
The business began as a hobby about 4 years ago.
I started trying to figure out how can I get the kids to eat this and how can we eat it. So we had tried coconut chips previously and I said, well, let's start with that.
Friends started taste testing the coconut chips and that led to selling small bags at the local markets, and before long, a thriving little business was born.
I got a text one day from a lady saying, I just bought your coconut chips. I'm in Sydney. I was up in Port Douglas on holidays. Where can I buy some? And we started just getting inquiry from shops, cafes, restaurants, just bakeries, all sorts of things.
Once they've collected enough coconuts, the Willets take them home. Dehusking the nuts is one of the hardest parts of the job and the most time-consuming.
The green coconut's pretty soft, like the young stuff with the young jelly meat. You can sort of pretty much get in with like even a bread knife. The brown ones are the hardest, I believe. Just so dry, the husk sort of sticks together a lot harder. We've got a coconut tool that we use to get the meat flesh out.
Once the flesh is removed, it's washed and then finely sliced. Then the fun part, adding flavour.
At the moment we have 7 flavours. We've got plain, Himalayan salt, sweet chili, maple, vanilla, chocolate. We had a curry and a sweet, which we've actually phased out, but we're sort of working on a few things, like a salted caramel. And I've just bought some salt, gourmet salt from a farmer in Tasmania.
And what would be your most popular flavour, do you reckon?
Oh, it's either the maple or the cinnamon, for sure.
The Willets now send their coconut chips all over the country. Dehydrators run basically around the clock so Casey and Jessie can meet demand. But there are plenty of people wanting more.
We often get asked for coconut oil, coconut milk, coconut cream, coconut water. Hey guys, got a delivery?
It's not that there aren't plenty of coconut products already on the market, it's just that they're not Australian.
I would bet $100 no one can walk into the average shop in Australia and find an Australian coconut product at all.
There's a real fad at the moment about drinking coconut water. But Paul Richardson has been drinking it since way before it was trendy.
To us, it's this champagne connoisseur experience of, oh, that one's really worth drinking, or that one's, you should try it. But not all the bunches on the tree are at that stage.
Paul came to live in far north Queensland in his 30s. He became so invested in coconuts that he even invented a tool to help people get into them.
You see that the nut starts up here and ends up down about there, so you go just below the middle.
So how old's this one? Around about?
Yeah, they'd be 9 months old, just naturally fizzy, and then after that...
It has, it's got a little bit of fizz, not a huge amount, but a bit.
He's patented his invention and sold his self-manufactured cocoa tap across the globe.
Mainly Florida and Hawaii is a sort of place where this culture is alive and they can afford a decent tool for it. I think it's gone into more than 80 countries.
Paul Richardson really believes Northern Australia has the potential to tap into a far greater coconut industry if it's done right.
It'd be nice to see premium coconut processing in North Queensland, but it's not to compete with imports, but just because you can never really import as fresh as you can produce here.
He believes the key to getting locally grown and produced coconut products on the market is education, so people understand what's good and what isn't.
The price that people are willing to pay for an imitation coconut product, that's become the driver of what I have to climb trees for. Short chain and medium chain fatty acids as fat for fuel. It's an incredibly restorative thing for a body that's sort of starved of nutrition.
Who knew there was quite so much to the humble coconut? Safety, entrepreneurship, health and free trade. But in the push to develop Northern Australia, perhaps the best days for Australian coconuts are still to come.